There are moments in history that stop people mid-sentence. Moments where you put down your phone, turn up the volume, and just stare. What Prince Harry said recently was one of those moments. It was not a slip. It was not taken out of context. It was deliberate, calculated, and aimed directly at the heart of the British establishment. And the UK has not been the same since. To understand why this statement hits so hard, you have to understand where Harry has been. For years, he has been the man the world watched walk away. Away from Buckingham Palace. Away from royal duties. Away from the country that shaped him. He moved to California, built a new life, and many assumed the fire inside him had cooled. They were wrong. When Harry spoke, he did not whisper. He did not hedge his words with diplomatic softness. He came out with a clarity that stunned even his harshest critics. The statement addressed things the royal family has refused to acknowledge publicly for years. It touched on pain, on betrayal, and on a rupture so deep that many insiders believe it cannot be repaired. British media reacted within minutes. Headlines flooded every major outlet. Some called it brave. Others called it reckless. But nobody called it boring. That alone tells you everything about the weight of what was said. What made it more powerful was the timing. Harry did not release this during a media tour. He was not selling a book or promoting a Netflix series. This came without warning. No PR build-up. No carefully staged interview setting. Just the words themselves, landing like a stone dropped into still water. The ripples moved fast. People who have followed the royal family for decades said they had never seen anything quite like it. Former royal correspondents struggled to find the right comparison. Some reached back to Princess Diana's infamous 1995 Panorama interview. Others said this felt even more raw, even more personal, because it came from a man who grew up inside those palace walls and chose to tear them down with his own hands. Back in London, the atmosphere shifted. Sources close to Kensington Palace described a mood of quiet tension. No official response came immediately. That silence, as many observers pointed out, was itself a kind of answer. And then there was Meghan. Those who were with her when the statement went public described a woman who was visibly moved. Not surprised, but moved. There is a difference between knowing something is coming and actually feeling it land in the real world. For Meghan, this moment carried the weight of years. What exactly did Harry say? Why did it cut so deep? And what does it tell us about where this family truly stands right now? The answer is more complicated and more revealing than most people realize. Words chosen carefully carry more weight than words spoken in anger. That is what makes Harry's statement so fascinating to dissect. Every sentence felt constructed. Every phrase felt intentional. And when you slow it down and look closely, what emerges is not just a personal outburst. It is a strategic, emotionally charged message designed to make the world pay attention. Harry spoke about family, but not in the warm, nostalgic way people use that word at Christmas dinners. He used the word like a weapon wrapped in velvet. He acknowledged the bond. Then he described the breach. And in doing so, he forced the public to sit with a deeply uncomfortable truth. That sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the very ones who cause the deepest damage. He referenced protection. This word has come up before in Harry's public statements, but this time it carried new weight. Observers noticed he was not speaking abstractly. He was speaking from a place of lived experience. Many believe he was pointing directly at decisions made at the highest levels of the royal institution. Decisions that, in his view, left him and his family exposed. Vulnerable. Alone. He also spoke about truth. And this is where things became electric. Because in royal circles, truth is a carefully managed resource. It is rationed. It is shaped. It is released only when it serves the institution. For Harry to stand outside that system and claim the right to his own version of events is not just bold. In the context of the British monarchy, it is almost revolutionary. Some reports suggest that certain phrases in the statement were reviewed and revised multiple times before release. That the final version was actually softer than earlier drafts. If that is true, and many close to the situation believe it is, then what the public heard was already a moderated version of what Harry truly wanted to say. That thought alone is staggering. There was also a passage that dealt with his children. Archie and Lilibet were not named directly, but anyone paying attention understood the reference. Harry made clear that his decisions, including this statement, are rooted in his role as a father. He is not just fighting old battles. He is building a wall around his family's future, and he is willing to burn bridges to do it. British commentators were divided almost immediately. Some said Harry had finally gone too far, that this statement would cost him whatever goodwill remained in the UK. Others argued the opposite, that by speaking plainly, without the coded language of palace PR, Harry had done something rare. He had been honest in a world built on performance. What nobody could deny was the impact. Phone lines at British talk radio stations lit up. Social media trended for hours. People who had never cared about the royal family suddenly had opinions. Because at its core, this was not just about a prince and his family. It was about power, about who gets to control the story, and about what happens when someone refuses to stay quiet. The statement was out. The damage, or depending on your view, the liberation was done. But Harry did not release these words into a vacuum. Someone was standing beside him through all of it. There are people who perform emotion for the camera. And then there are people who cannot hide what they truly feel no matter how hard they try. Those who know Meghan Markle well will tell you she falls firmly into the second category. Whatever she has learned about public life, whatever armor she has built over years of scrutiny, there are moments when the real woman breaks through. This was one of those moments. When the statement went public, Meghan was not alone. People close to the couple described the scene carefully. She had known this was coming. She and Harry had discussed it. She had read the words. She understood what releasing them meant. And yet, when it actually happened, when the statement moved from a private document to a global headline, something shifted inside her. Those present said she became quiet. Not the quiet of someone who is calm. The quiet of someone who is processing something enormous. Her eyes filled. She did not break down. She did not need to. The emotion on her face told the entire story without a single word being spoken. To understand why this hit her so deeply, you have to understand what Meghan has carried. She came into the royal family as an outsider. An American. A biracial woman entering one of the oldest, most traditional institutions in the world. She smiled through the scrutiny. She dressed the part. She followed the protocols. And still, many reports suggest, she felt the walls closing in from the very beginning. She has spoken publicly about the toll those years took. About feeling isolated. About reaching out for help and not receiving it. About watching the institution protect its image while she struggled privately. Those are not small things. Those are the kinds of experiences that leave marks that do not fade easily. So when Harry stood up and said what he said, it was not just his statement. In many ways it was hers too. It was the acknowledgement she had been waiting for. Not from a therapist or a friend or a sympathetic journalist. But from the world. From the public record. From history itself. Observers who have watched Meghan closely over the years noted something else. In the hours after the statement dropped, she appeared grounded in a way she has not always projected. There was grief in her expression, yes. But there was also something that looked remarkably like relief. As though a weight she had been carrying for a very long time had finally been set down. Some reports suggest that Meghan played a significant role in encouraging Harry to speak. Not by writing the words for him, but by creating the space where he felt safe enough to use his own. That is a different kind of influence. Quieter. More profound. And it says a great deal about where their relationship stands today. Because this couple has been tested in ways most people will never experience. They left everything. They rebuilt everything. And they have done it while the entire world watched and judged and commented on every single step. What Meghan's reaction revealed is that behind the composed public face, there is a woman who still feels every blow. Who still carries the weight of what was lost. And who is deeply, genuinely invested in the truth being told. But while Meghan processed her emotions in private, another group of people were doing something very different. They were saying nothing at all. In the world of royal communication, silence is never accidental. Every word released from Buckingham Palace or Kensington Palace goes through layers of review. press secretaries, communications teams, senior advisors, legal counsel. Nothing escapes without intention. So when a statement as explosive as Harry's lands in the public domain and the response from the institution is complete, total silence, that silence becomes its own statement. And the British public noticed immediately. Hours passed after Harry's words went public. Then a full day. No response from the palace. No carefully worded rebuttal. No anonymous source briefing friendly journalists with the royal family's side of things. Just stillness. And in that stillness, 1,000 questions grew louder. Were they caught off guard? Some insiders believe so. Despite the well-documented tensions between Harry and the institution, there are reports suggesting that the specific content of this statement was not anticipated. That even those closest to the situation did not expect Harry to go this far, this directly at this particular moment. If true, it means the palace's silence in those first hours was not strategic. It was shock. But shock only lasts so long. And as hours turned into days, a different explanation began to emerge. One that is far more calculated and in many ways far more revealing. The royal family has learned, through painful experience, that engaging with Harry publicly does not end well for them. Every time an anonymous briefing has appeared in the press attacking Harry or Meghan, it has backfired. Every time a source close to the palace has pushed back on one of their claims, it has generated more attention, more sympathy for Harry and Meghan, and more damage to the institution's carefully maintained image. So the strategy shifted. Stay quiet. Do not feed the story. Let it die on its own. The problem with that strategy is that this story refuses to die. Observers noticed that certain senior royals were seen in public in the days following the statement. Attending engagements. Smiling for cameras. Carrying out duties as though nothing had happened. To some, this looked like dignity and discipline. To others, it looked like denial. The performance of normalcy in the face of something deeply abnormal. King Charles, in particular, drew significant attention. His public schedule continued without interruption. Those who study royal body language and public presentation noted that he appeared composed but tired. There were moments, brief and quickly masked, where something heavier seemed to cross his face. Whether that was grief, frustration, or simply the burden of his position, nobody could say for certain. Prince William's silence carried its own weight. The relationship between William and Harry has been described by multiple sources as effectively broken. Not wounded. Not strained. Broken. And yet William said nothing. Did nothing publicly. Continued his work with the same focused determination he always projects. But those who know him well suggest that behind closed doors, the mood was anything but calm. What the silence ultimately communicates is this. The royal family has made a choice. They have decided that acknowledgement equals legitimacy. That by responding to Harry, they validate his version of events. So they choose to say nothing and hope the world moves on. But the world is not moving on. Because Harry is not finished. And the distance between these two sides of the family has never felt wider or more permanent than it does right now. There is a particular kind of pain that comes from belonging nowhere. From being too much of one thing for one world and not enough of another thing for the next. Prince Harry has lived inside that pain for years. And what his statement revealed, more than anything else, is that the divide he has been straddling has finally cracked open completely. There is no middle ground left. There is no bridge still standing between the two versions of his life. On one side is the world he was born into. Ancient. Structured. Governed by rules that were never written down because they never needed to be. Everyone inside that world simply knew them. You do not speak about internal matters publicly. You do not challenge the institution. You do not prioritize your own emotional truth over the collective image of the crown. Harry grew up breathing that air. It shaped everything about him. His posture. His sense of duty. His understanding of what it means to serve. On the other side is the world he chose. California. Freedom. A life built on authenticity rather than performance. A marriage to a woman who encouraged him to examine the things he had always accepted without question. A therapist's couch where the armor he had worn since childhood was slowly, painfully removed. A new identity built not on title or lineage but on something far more fragile and far more real. His own sense of self. For a while, Harry tried to exist in both worlds simultaneously. He attended royal events when invited. He kept certain lines of communication open. He spoke carefully in interviews, revealing enough to tell his story without completely destroying what remained of his family relationships. Many observers believed this was sustainable, that with enough time and enough goodwill, some version of reconciliation was possible. This statement suggests that era is over. What Harry communicated between the lines and sometimes directly on them is that he is no longer willing to soften his truth for the comfort of an institution that he believes never truly protected him. That is a profound shift, because for most of his life, Harry's entire identity was built around protection. Protecting the crown. Protecting the image. Protecting the family. He was a soldier, literally and figuratively, and soldiers do not break ranks. But something changed. Some reports suggest it was the experience of watching his wife struggle without support. Others believe it was the cumulative weight of years of negative press coverage that he felt was orchestrated from within the very family he was protecting. Still others point to his work in therapy and his growing understanding of intergenerational trauma. Most likely it was all of these things colliding at once. What emerged from that collision is a man who no longer recognizes the version of himself that stayed silent, who looks back at those years of